Okay, so today we're going to talk about a scientist whose legacy is so powerful, it's literally glowing. It's been over 90 years since Marie Curie died. And she was this absolute titan of science. Her discoveries completely changed our world. But what's truly incredible is that the things she left behind, I'm talking her clothes, her furniture, even her cookbooks, they are still dangerously radioactive to this day. And this isn't some kind of metaphor. I mean, her lab notebooks are so contaminated, they have to be kept in lead-lined boxes at France's National Library. If you want to see them today, you've got to wear protective gear and sign a liability waiver. Think about that. Even her body had to be buried in a coffin lined with almost an inch of lead. It's a permanent testament to the power she was working with. So that's the big question, right? How did one person's life's work leave a physical trace that's going to last for centuries? What did she discover that was so powerful? And who was the woman behind all this incredible science? All right, so let's start with the story most of us think we know. The highlight reel of Marie Curie's scientific achievements. It's an incredible story of genius and just relentless dedication. Okay, so she arrives in Paris from Poland in 91 to study, and she hits the ground running. By 1895, she marries a fellow scientist, Pierre Curie, and together they form this legendary partnership. And it's not long before they discover not one, but two brand new elements, polonium and radium. This work makes her the first woman ever to win a Nobel Prize in 1903, but she wasn't done. In 1911, she becomes the first person ever to win a second Nobel Prize. It was just this whirlwind of relentless work and discovery that would completely change science. But look at what this work actually involved. This wasn't some clean, quiet lab work. It was grueling physical labor. I mean, they had to process several tons of a raw material called pitchblende. They spent 4 years boiling and refining it in what was basically a shed just to get 1/10 of a single gram of pure radium. The amount of effort, it's just mind-boggling. But what's so fascinating about her story is that her passion wasn't just for discovery. She was also a passionate educator, and she approached teaching in some pretty revolutionary and sometimes even dangerous ways. Yeah, long before she was famous, way back in Poland when it was occupied by Russia, she risked being deported. Why? Because she was illegally teaching Polish language and culture to peasant kids. It just goes to show you that rebellious, idealistic spirit was part of who she was from the very start. So later on in Paris, she brought that same energy to her own kids' education. She looked at the typical schooling of the time, all rote memorization from books, and thought, nope, we can do better. So she got together with her colleagues from the Sorbonne and started this radical little school they called the Cooperative. The whole idea was to ditch the boring lectures and focus on hands-on experiments, learning by doing. And their classroom, it wasn't a classroom at all. It was the actual labs of some of the top scientists in Paris. Can you imagine? Her own daughter Irene was one of the students. And you can see from this quote how impactful it was. One student, Eugenie Fadis, remembered watching Pierre Curie work, just amazed by the skill of his hands. I mean, that's how you make science come alive, right? No textbook could ever compete with that. But Marie's life wasn't just a straight line of scientific triumphs. Not at all. It was also marked by absolutely immense personal tragedy and a huge public scandal that really threatened to destroy everything she had built. So, in 1906, her whole world just falls apart. Pierre, her husband, and her scientific partner, is killed instantly in a tragic street accident in Paris. And just like that, she's a widow, a single mother of 2 little girls, and completely on her own. And then, just a few years later, as she's trying to rebuild her life, her private life is suddenly plastered all over the newspapers. Letters revealing an affair she was having with a married physicist, Paul Langevin, were leaked. The French press was just vicious, using it as an excuse to attack her as this foreign Jewish homewrecker. It was ugly, and a lot of it was fueled by pure xenophobia. The scandal got so bad that the Nobel Committee actually wrote to her and suggested she shouldn't come to Stockholm to accept her second prize. Can you believe that? But Marie Curie wasn't someone you could just intimidate. She had friends like Albert Einstein in her corner. He wrote her this amazing letter telling her to ignore the rabble. So she did. She went to Stockholm and she accepted that prize. And then, as if all that wasn't enough, World War I breaks out. Europe is plunged into chaos. But did she hide? Nope. She saw a way she could use her science to save lives, and she jumped right in. What did she do? She came up with the idea for mobile X-ray units. She developed and helped equip 20 of these vans. And get this, she taught herself auto mechanics so she could drive and fix them. She taught herself anatomy, all so she could operate these things on the front lines. These mobile units quickly got a nickname, the Petite Curies, or Little Curies. They brought radiology right to the battlefield, allowing surgeons to find shrapnel and bullets in wounded soldiers before operating. We're talking about countless lives saved because of her ingenuity. Which brings us right back to where we started, the profound, permanent nature of her work and the incredible price she personally paid for it. All those years handling radioactive materials with basically no protection, well, it took its toll. In 1934, Marie Curie died from leukemia, a cancer we now know was caused by her long-term exposure to radiation. And yet, she never tried to get rich off her work. She and Pierre made a conscious decision not to patent the process for isolating radium. She famously said that radium was an element and that it belonged to all people. It wasn't about money for her. It was about the science and about humanity. So the very thing that lit up her world, that glowing element, was also what ended her life. But that work completely revolutionized our understanding of the atom. And in this really powerful twist of fate, the same radiation that killed her is now used in medicine, in radiotherapy, to save millions of lives from cancer. When you look back, she was so much more than just a scientist. She was an icon, a revolutionary educator, a survivor, a war hero. She left behind this glow that science can still measure today, a legacy that will, quite literally, never ever fade.